Hey everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Snapchat. I'm joined today by none other than Cozy Snap. Cozy, it's been a wild week in Marvel Snap. Man-Thing has come out. How has your experience been navigating the swamps of Marvel Snap?
Man-Thing, dude, as you know, was playing a lot of Toxic before he came out, so I was naturally excited to plug him into my arsenal. He's everything I honestly kind of thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to be somewhat of a high skill cap card if you really want to get advantage of him in the worst possible time for him to come out in Marvel Snap. So I'm excited to break him down today. Truly, if we were to put Luke Cage small aside, is he good? Is he viable? There's a lot to break down about him. I thought he was very fun to play and very interesting. What are your initial thoughts on him after a week of testing?
My initial thought was that this felt like Jean Grey coming out during bounce, right? That was my thought. Jean Grey got destroyed by the meta, and I feel like Man-Thing is suffering the same fate, where it comes out, there is an immediate hard counter to it, even more so than Jean Grey. Jean Grey obviously gets hard countered by Kitty Pryde and Bounce, but Man-Thing, it's I just have this one card, and it beats Man-Thing, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And it just so happens that Luke Cage was so prevalent in the meta. The timing was awful, as we've alluded to already. But the card itself, I actually like it. I like it a lot. And there's something I want to bring up. Last week, almost nonchalantly, you mentioned how you thought it would be better potentially later in the game. I want to just give you props, Cozy, because my experience has been, I've been experimenting with a couple different decks, but I've been playing a Zabu based deck. I'm going to throw it up on the screen here. It was like a Zabu Darkhawk based package with their Korg. It had Black Widow, Luke Cage. Of course, it had Zabu as well. Shadow King, Rogue, Rockslide, Darkhawk, Shang-Chi, Man-Thing, Iron Lad, and Doctor Doom. Now, the deck is pretty cool, but what I really liked about it was that with Zabu, I had the option of playing Man-Thing on turn 6 in conjunction with Shang-Chi, in conjunction with Darkhawk, Rockslide, whatever. And if I didn't do that, I could play Doctor Doom if they had a Luke Cage on the board. But I love it because you said you can play it on turn 6. I'm like, that's a great idea. You know where all their pieces are. You know where all the broods are. You know where... And it worked, Cozy. And it also gave you time to play the Rogue, to counter it, and to actually set up your board state. Dude, I think you nailed it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I feel like I appreciate it. The two things I discounted with him the most in my head, it was, we're in a very heavy Luke Cage meta, but right now because of that, Rogue is truly a part of so many decks. She doesn't feel like a burden being in your deck because you typically get that value now. In fact, I'm thrilled when I draw Rogue. I'm like, all right, I've got a weapon in the tank. She's massive for Man-Thing. The flips, where I discounted him the most in my head, or didn't give enough credit, is just playing him in a lane. This guy can hold the fort down in one lane as his own card. I think he is still being underrated. I still think I've seen people crap on this card, and I'm like, guys, yeah, he's going to lose to Luke Cage just as Cosmo counters a Wong. But last turn play and single lane play is phenomenal for Man-Thing, and I think he came out, just like you said, arguably next to Jean Grey in the Kitty Bounce era, and or Nebula when Kitty got given to everybody for free. Man-Thing is probably landing at the worst time he could possibly come out, and I still think he's pretty good.
He is good, and I like the idea of locking down a location with him preemptively, because in the prior deck I was talking about, before I had kind of put in the Black Widow, I was actually running Goose, because you could slide the Man-Thing under the Goose with the Zabu. And essentially, it's what do you even do? What's your opponent do? They can't play a big card there. They feed small cards in. They just get dismantled by Man-Thing. It was cool. It was a little more niche. Didn't work nearly as well as the deck I showed you prior. But it was still a cool application. It showcases that if they don't have Luke Cage, he is hard to deal with unless you commit a turn 5 or 6 play on him. You have to commit a bigger piece to deal with Man-Thing. So he does hold down the fort quite a bit.
Yeah, dude, I was playing him in a Lady Deathstrike package. This is a little bit outdated because Forge is now 1-drop. This was, talk about kind of a high skill cap deck to play. But what I loved about it is this dock and the way that he worked with Forge and Lady Deathstrike. So those three all work together. Debris did not make the final cut in my build I have now. I feel like Debris I missed on last week a little bit. It's good to own up to. I feel like you don't, giving them those one costs are take that. But it also felt like a weird curve play when there's other things I kind of wanted to accomplish with the deck. But the thing that really worked out so well is having Hood, Sentry Void, both able to have destruction done by Lady Deathstrike, or you send it with Viper. Lady Deathstrike in a Toxic build would never connect for me. I would have never thought that. Playing Man-Thing down and getting all those down -2 and then playing Lady Deathstrike. Dude, talk about a surefire way. If you don't get your rogue, destroy the Luke Cage. Straight up rip him up. That is better than I thought.
It is, and like the meta right now too. It's funny you bring up LDS because I actually have in my notes LDS way better than I expected.
Oh yeah.
And like Man-Thing works incredibly well against Elsa Bloodstone. Like Elsa, these Elsa decks that's like, oh, it's Elsa, it's Angela, it's Kitty Pryde, and like Man-Thing just sits there like, hey, like perfect, play into me, right? I got you, right? And what's great about that is like LDS also like just munches on those cards. Like Elsa just dies. Like there's no situation where Elsa survives an LDS play, right? So it's like, it's pretty cool that you bring that up because I think that it has been pretty synergistic just in and of itself. And also they adjusted the, did you notice that they glow red? The cards glow red and stuff? That's new, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like, first of all, I slept on the variant too. Can I just say that? This variant, dude, it's like child nightmares for sure. The hands are like ridiculous. But the LDS is coming in. Man-Thing came in at the worst time. LDS came in at the best time. Like that's kind of like summed up, I feel like, for those two cards.
Realistically, Man-Thing is actually doing pretty well right now. Do you like, so its win rate is actually hovering around 57% at 9% of the meta. Now, when you have Goliath at like 20% of the meta or whatever it is, like 25%, like it's obviously not as much of a shaker. I think a lot of people have moved away from Man-Thing pretty early, but I think that as the meta shifts, this is gonna be like one of those cards that's going to age like fine wine because like next month we're getting a Nihilus, right? Which I think is going to be huge for Toxic and Man-Thing as a whole. But like, we just need Luke Cage to kind of just whimper away. Yep. And as Man-Thing's at intent, listen, it has 10% meta share right now in the launch week. That's a third of what most cards are. Like Elsa, I think was 30. So like, there's going to be chances for you to play Man-Thing here at a high % win rate because people aren't going to be as prepared as before.
The problem, too, is, like, Shadow King is a must in a lot of decks, and then you have Luke Cage to protect your own side of it. So, like, it's also Shadow King's fault. I saw a tweet about, like, making these tech cards, like, 5 cost or 4 cost, and, like, Luke Cage, for instance. And I don't love that. I think we might need, like, another answer to, like, 2 cost cards, maybe, or 3 cost. Like, there's got to be some other interesting way that isn't Lady Deathstrike at 5 cost. But I don't know. I think it's fine. Luke Cage is where he's at. But if you look forward, man, he's going to become even more of a staple. It's hard to see Luke Cage not in decks for a while, but that's okay. I think he needs to be there. I think Cosmo's there for on reveal. Toxic needs something to obviously go against it. And that's where I thought Lady Deathstrike was interesting because she's not just doing toxic play. She's killing things and chopping things up.
I think one of the things that limits Man-Thing is it has the Spider-Man 2099 problem where it can't be played individually. It sucks by itself. It automatically, oh, I'm playing Man-Thing, I have to run Luke Cage. Like it basically is an auto include in your own deck for the most part. Do you think the card would be better if it was a 4/3 that only affected the opponent's side, or a 4/2, or like these stats were adjusted to not have the reciprocal effect?
Yeah, no. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like you don't have to have Luke Cage down if you know where you're playing him. Like, not if you know where you're playing him, but like, you know what I mean? Like, again, solo in a lane, he could just win a lane. Like, by himself, he could just, it's over. It can hurt you a ton, and I feel like it fits Toxic, just like Black Knight fits Discard. Toxic is playing with fire. And so, like, you have a card with tremendous stat value, but if things go wrong, it goes against you. I feel like that's just kind of how it works in there. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he is the definition of the Toxic archetype. So sure, it would probably be better, but you know, same as a Green Goblin not being able to be Odin'd back to me or whatever it is, in a sense. So it's interesting you say that. I think I'd keep him how he is now, but it's gonna take some time for people to figure him out. Yeah.
I just don't see many decks out there where he's not played in combination with Luke Cage.
Well, you want Luke in the deck.
I feel like that feels like a risk.
You want Luke in the deck. For sure. I don't feel he's as detrimental as Hazmat is with Luke Cage.
No, not at all. It's not even close to the same thing at all. But at the same time, like, should cards be able to stand on their own merit? Like, I'm going to play a Man-Thing deck and it's Luke Cage Man. Like, does it always have to be like that? You know what I mean? It kind of like, it's the Chavez problem with Apocalypse, right? Or Chavez pretty much just in general, where you just have Chavez in the deck. And so Man-Thing's always just going to have Luke Cage.
Yeah.
It's like, it just makes me wonder. It's like, oh, you have a 12 card deck game. It's really only 11 cards now because it has to be those two are coming as a package all the time. I just try to see if you can break. It's just a thought I had. Can you break away from that?
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. I feel like to me it's like Captain Marvel and Kraven or Angela and Kitty. Like it's just like kind of like there's cards that go together, and to get rid of the risk and have the potential flip, you have Luke Cage. I get what you mean, and it could certainly, I get it's already a small deck with not so many cards, so it encourages creativity. But there's some it's just hard to escape that. I think there's just some cards that are naturally going to want to be together in the deck. But certainly, Man Thing it was a fun card, and I'm excited as like the hype dies down, so I can continue to play that archetype.
Yeah, that's where it'll be its best. Quick star rating, Cozy. What do you think after a week?
We had him, what, at 3-star, I think, both of us? I honestly still have him at 3-star for what he does, respectively. Maybe 2.5. I think 3 stars is fair to me, though, in the decks you're supposed to be playing him in.
I think I fall closer to 2. Yeah. I'd accept 2.5, right? Yep. But, like, yeah, there'll come a time where he's a 3-star card, for sure. Potentially even a 4-star card with the Nihilist. So, look at those variants. And he has the comic book variant coming, too, as well.
Oh, I know,
Have you seen that?
Yeah, I saw this one. I was like, gotta buy that, dude. But, yeah, this is... He's got some cool variants. Like, for a while, it was fun because the gold upgrade wasn't working, and I was like, just like having to like do a green border to match. But yeah, he's got some cool stuff for sure. But I'm excited to experiment. I think all of the cards in October are like very interesting archetype kind of cards, right? So.
Cozy, let's talk about a year of Marvel Snap in review, but mainly about the actual client itself, the game, the big changes that have been made to make this game even better. It's been a wild one, a wild year, and we're going to go through a little on a bit of a chronological scale here. I want to talk about November 2022. So Marvel Snap just launched. And then the first ever massive series drop happened. Not series drop, sorry, the release of cards, which included Thanos and Galactus, Series 5 cards. Now, this was a big change to Marvel Snap because you had 2 big bads. They established the big bad system, which we'll talk about later. But like, it also represented 2 major changes to the way Marvel Snap can be played. 2 completely different archetypes riding on the back of individual cards. I thought it was a huge moment for Marvel Snap.
Yeah, and just the token shop, right? So, like, the ability to choose the cards that you wanted to unlock. Everybody at that time was in the trenches of Pool 3. And so being able to be like, I want to play a Red Skull deck, so you go after Red Skull. Like, that was such a fun, great time. Obviously, we didn't get the benefit off that because we had the Pool 3 cards from beta, but, like, or had to earn them. We didn't just get them. Let me make that clear. But the token shop, rest in peace, man, because I actually miss the original design in some cases. What we have now is way better. But I liked the idea of, like, having this way to always target cards that you wanted to get. And when the pool of cards, no pun intended, was much wider, it just brought that much fun, right? Series 4, Series 5 in concept, we were like, whoa! Some of it didn't age all the way great. But Thanos and Galactus, and that whole slew of new cards was still to date one of my favorite times in Snap. I thought it was so much fun when they all came out.
It was a ton of fun, and what's notable is that, like, specifically with Thanos and Galactus, like, they've been archetype defining cards for a very long time, and I just hope we get cards of that impact in the future too. Cards that are like perennial, like winners, perennial, like exciting cards to be playing. Whether or not they get a little OP or not, it's a whole other question. But meta shakers is what we're looking at. And then in early 2023, the date is quite uncertain, but a certain someone joined the fray in Marvel Snap. And I thought this was very notable because if you think about what it was like before Glenn Jones and then after Glenn Jones, I think it's really important to note that when Glenn was hired and brought onto the Marvel Snap team, I think it actually legitimately solidified Marvel Snap, the balance, the way the game was approached from a balance perspective, the card releases. All these things kind of fell in line after Glenn became kind of the voice of second editor Marvel Snap. Like in Discord, on Twitter, Glenn's answering a ton of questions. So I actually think it is a huge change that in 2023, Glenn Jones was added to the team.
Yeah, dude, it's not often that I go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over just like one individual developer, but you nailed it. The presence that he had to be kind of this bouncing board and having this presence, so there wasn't just like the man behind the mask. Like we knew who was balancing the game, and I think they did an okay. In beta, they were kind of like throwing out like, well, let's see if this works. I feel like not to knock anybody that was doing the balance then, but when we I will never forget when we had 2 months of the same leader Zob it coincide with holiday break. It was an atrocious. It was terrible to play during this small window. And after the Zabu Surfer nerf, moving forward, it kind of felt like everything was solved and had a plan in place. And like that's what Glenn brought. Card design, from what he does. I think High Evo was his first card that says enough to his name. And then moving forward, just the meta and OTA card balance. They hit it. They hit it a lot. I think Glenn was very important to Marvel Snap's competitive, and it's still what's bringing back people that want to play, a bit more sweaty.
Like the fact that we have this patch OTA schedule that we can put in a calendar, and we know that there's going to be adjustments to the meta made at given times, and that cards that are being completely disruptive to the meta aren't going to go ignored for months or months on end, the way Silver Surfer, Zabu, and to a major degree Shuri did as well. We're kind of forgetting about what Shuri did to the meta for several months. Like that just doesn't happen now, right? Alliance, whether you agree with the change or not, was dealt with pretty quickly. And that is a direct result to this person being joining the team, right? And I don't want to sleep on the developer question and answers that he does and all those things. That community engagement's huge. And I think that it does a lot for Marvel Snap as a whole, because like I come from other games where like you couldn't even name a single developer because no one responds to anything on Twitter, on Reddit, on Discord, nothing. Yeah. There is no communication at all. And Glenn completely goes against that and answers pretty much almost every question that I see thrown his way. So I think it was huge for Marvel Snap as a whole, truthfully.
And it feels like we're like just like toting up one guy, but truly like there was a big anchor there. Like I think there's a reason that the Conquerors have Ben Brode was interviewed, and then we interviewed Glenn Jones. I think there's a lot of people behind the scenes that work hard in this game, but those two were pillars in the game and are pillars. The one thing I like about Glenn too, and we can move on, but essentially like, I remember seeing tweets where he's like, Magic's not on our list whatsoever. Starter cards are not on our list. And then it's like, all of a sudden, Medusa, Magic getting... Like, it's like, there's stubborn people, especially in game design, because they see it a certain way, right? And I feel like that hasn't anchored down Marvel Snap. So I wanted to shout that out. I feel like that's important.
Yeah, like he's actually listening. And going back to January 2023, another major change was made to Marvel Snap that made the game infinitely better, one might say. That was the inclusion of infinite rewards, like proper actual infinite rewards. It's easy to forget that, like before, you'd get like a title for getting infinite. I don't even remember what you'd get, like garbage, just garbage.
The avatars
right?
are cool.
Finally, yeah, finally, after the Silver Surfer season, I think it was the Zabu season was the first one. Because of a direct result of feedback from the community, they added the gold card back. Yeah. And I thought that was a huge, impressive change that had to be made. It's not, I mean, it's really not that impressive. It makes perfect sense now. It's not like crazy development costs to do the gold card back, but it's such a huge addition to getting to Infinite. And that was something we didn't have for like 6 months prior.
Yeah, fully agree. I kind of forgot that wasn't like staple for a while. It was definitely important to get in there. It's almost easier to get that now than the regular season one. Like, it's crazy, but even back then, it was so hard to get Infinite that like that card back truly was like, I made it, right? And that was really cool. Yeah. And you know what it is? It's cool to see retrospective of like the seasons you did good in. Like, it's cool to look back and have something to show for it. I thought that was something nice that they included, so you could see truly like the first season you started making Infinite, and then you wouldn't take 70 or less for an answer or whatever, right? Like that was a great addition. So that was January. What next?
In February, how can we not talk about the release of Battle Mode? January, Battle Mode comes out. It also coincided with a lot of tournaments. It basically thrust competitive Marvel Snap into the spotlight, because without it, like, there was no competitive Marvel Snap. It really wasn't. And so Battle Mode comes out in February, and it didn't have matchmaking. Conquest Mode has to come later, but we did actually get it, which launched the competitive scene of Marvel Snap.
Yeah, dude, and kudos to them. Hearing that is probably like the biggest feedback, getting on top of it, making it work, and then doing it really well. The code system, not a friends list, like that was just good. They did a great job behind the UI of that. So major props.
And then in March 2023, I want to shout out something that was driving me absolutely nuts that they corrected to make Marvel Snap a better game. And that was the reduction of featured and hot locations.
Whoa.
Do you remember when featured locations used to be 48 hours and the game would be unplayable for those 48 hours?
Dude, oh my god, dude, the 2 times a week. I remember Lockjaw came out and Quantum Tunnel was a location for 2 days, and I was like, what's happening? Like, what is this? This game was unplayable. Like, and then Conquest relieved it even further, but like, and not to skip ahead, but you know what I mean? Massive, though, that change to one. Thank God. And it changed balance too a little bit.
100%. And it's one of those things where like I'm trying to bring up things that people might have forgotten about.
Yeah.
Like that was huge. Do you guys like think about what the peak was like for 2 days?
Dude.
Like it was just the game was unplayable. Like it was not playable Marvel Snap. It was awful.
The peak, and to be said too, like I don't know if this is on the list, but like I know they took back like Subterranea a little bit. The stopping of releases of locations of like, why is this in the game, dude? Like some of these locations are gone. We're never gonna see them again because they were that bad. Like remember like Sandbar on a Patriot meta, and it was like, what are we doing? Yeah, he got another ego. Like it was like furthering the. Like, you have Glint for this amazing balanced meta design, and then you have Krakoa coming in. You're like, what's happening?
And then in June 2023, we have the launch of Conquest, like you alluded to prior. Now, that is the full evolution of the battle mode now, automated matchmaking, the reward shop. I still think they're working on some things to, like, make it more, more rewarding and stuff like that, because now with the ranked system in ladder, I think Conquest, the heat of Conquest has kind of come down a little bit. I still enjoy it for, basically it's essentially our unranked mode to some degree, right? In the Proving Grounds. But I do think that the release of Conquest was important because it gave people that really want to test their mettle another opportunity to play Snap in a different way.
Yep, for sure. I mean, I might be one of the biggest Conquest fans still. I love Conquest. I have to play ladder. Actually, I don't have to. I enjoy playing ladder. I like seeing a number go up. But Conquest is a different way to play Snap that if you have the time for it, almost enjoy more. I do enjoy more. I enjoy the deck philosophy of it. But yeah, dude, Conquest was a home run. They need to add some stuff to the reward system of it. But what a home run for the first game mode.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It definitely was a home run, and it just anytime you can get a great game like Marvel Snap and you could apply it in different styles of gameplay that also adjusts the meta. Like I think Conquest meta is a little different. I think that the approach to decks, the approach to playing Snap conditions, it's all completely different. It's a very different experience, and I think that makes Marvel Snap better. Just like the release of the Spotlight Cash system in June 2023. And this actually coincides with a couple other points I'll make. We also saw the exclusion of boosters in collector's reserves, but we also had gold removed. That's a whole other conversation. But we did get the Spotlight Cash system. I know, rest in peace, gold in reserves. Spotlight Caches. I got to tell you, Cozy, it definitely has improved the card acquisition for the average player. That is without question. It still has its challenges. We see that today with repetitive things and card art not being quite up to what we would have wanted to, and etc. It still has problems and needs to be worked on. But as a whole, June 2023 saw the launch of a system that generally improved the access to cards for most players.
Yeah, and like the direct, it's funny because we're saying improvements, and then people are gonna comment and say like no, but kinda. Series drops as a whole came. We did skip that in March. Like series drops coming was big, and the first week was like She-Hulk, Absorbing Man. I remember that being massive at the time. And the reason I brought that up was because the Direct to Series 4 came right around this time, and it felt good. It felt different. The first few months of Spotlights were awesome. Sensational, felt really, really good. You can look at months like October that I think September, that they did very good. Save up for it. Great month. Everything's a home run hit. You used to not be able to get any of those cards. We've talked about it before. In practice, there's things they got to change about it. There's things that it's definitely not aged as well because of, honestly, in my opinion, failing to deliver on some promises. But altogether, I think the Spotlight is a much better Snap, bro. Like, we can get excited. Dude, if I made a card about Dazzler as a new card, no one gave a damn because they're not playing with Dazzler for 6 months, right? You had to wait for her to series drop for 6 months. Now you can get her if you enjoy that archetype. If you like, home run, man. I love what they've done.
Yeah, I think I literally opened 100 something like collector's reserves during the collector, like the Series 5 thing, and I didn't even get a Series 5 card.
No.
I unlocked 2 Series 4 cards. I was like, oh great, cool. I guess this is my life now. Like I just don't get the new cards, right? It was kind of sad. So it definitely is a better system, but you're right. Improvements need to be made. August 2023, Cozy.
Oh, yeah.
What an absolute month. Now we're getting to the recent times here, but can you guess what released 1.0 in August?
The PC drop, which again, they did it right. They did it right. You know, I think they did it so good that like even for the anniversary, people are like, well, at PC launch, because they did it so good. It was so much at once, and what it did for the game. I think the client has aged good too. Like I think it feels good, and there's still improvements there, but like that's kind of them. They like to get something out there as quick per se as possible, and then refine it and continue to refine it. loved what it did for across creators too, having like not all these different type of cutouts and chaos, you know.
Yeah, I know, and running like emulators just to get the game to play it all, having the emulator crash, it is a far better experience for pretty much everyone overall. And the thing I like about it too is there's always room for improvement. But I feel like now that that is out of the way, like that core concept is done, now they can do the iterative improvements on that client overall. And finally, the last thing I want to talk about in Marvel Snap's first year. Cozy, you might have unique insight on this. In September 2023, you, my friend, were stranded on Mount Vesuvius. Would you like to give us some insight on how that felt?
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you, it was, finally get to do some stuff with Ben Bro. So excited, and then I just get trashed on the entire thing. I'm still going for my revenge. My goal is to have him on a game show, and then just do the same thing. It's like, save it for your announcements, Ben. Yeah. Dude, that was such a cool. Honestly, I think that's something that's just an improvement overall too. Is like between Conquerors, I thought that was definitely a highlight. Not just because like I hosted it or whatever, but like between that, the creators on the channel, which I still don't have a video on there, but the creators on the channel that do like one creator thing per. The involvement with the community, they've continued to improve too, which you love to see that in a game. And yeah, that Mount Vesuvius was definitely one of them.
Yeah, it was awesome to see you and Dex on there. It's just you know what, like they've really done a great job of kind of engaging with the community. And again, this is something that like most developers don't do, right? It takes effort, it takes time. Like it's just great to see, and I think it overall makes Marvel Snap a better game and a better experience for everyone that engages with it. Cozy.
Yes, sir.
That takes us to our next discussion about Marvel Snap's big bads. Are they bad? It's an important question to ask because I think there's only one that we can confidently say is actually good right now. And as a result, we're going to talk about each of the big bads, what we think might have to change, and how the system is kind of starting to show its age a little bit. Now, we have Galactus on the stream, Cozy. Galactus has been by far, of all the big bads, the most controversial for obvious reasons. Now running a 6.5 stat line, this thing has bounced around so often, it's even hard to keep track of. It was a 6.2 at one point. But I got to tell you, Cozy, at a 55% win rate, it only has a 2% meta share since it was patched. I actually don't think that's all that bad, all things considered.
Yeah, it's funny because Marvel's biggest, baddest villains, per se, even though High Evo is not on that list so much, but you know what I mean? Like, they're big bads. And in the MCU, which was where that was kind of deemed, they wanted to give these cards such a specific, unique ability. Too unique, and then what happened is you have a lot of people fall in love with that, but they're so unique that they take away from the core concept of the game. So it's such a to me, like, the concept was so great, but also, my god, are they a headache to adjust. Like Galactus, dude, in all of his iterations, that's not as bad a stats as I thought, though. Definitely, like, I don't pick to play him anymore, but it's definitely done what they probably were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, Galactus has come down a little bit, which I think it had to, but what's notable here is that it's only 2% of the meta, right? Which means that you could take people by surprise with a clever Galactus play here. And I think that's what it's good at. That's what it's always intended to be. We had a point in time where it was like 12% of the meta. It was rising up to 16% of the meta before the nerf. So it was very prevalent. But here's the thing. So we had this big bad system where they're always going to cost 6,000 tokens, right? And I don't know how well that's aged. Now, obviously, these cards have come up in caches. Even Galactus has, right? Galactus was, you have the Spotlight cache variant right here on the screen. But, like, at the same time, I wonder about it. Because I think a lot of people were confident to spend their tokens, knowing that they were going to get that full value. It's never going to change. But I wonder if the big bad system needs to be changed as well.
Well, the problem is they haven't done any other series drops, right? So it's like, yeah, they're never going to go away from Series 5. Well, guess what? They're kind of, right now, nothing is, right? Jeff could be a big bad in terms of how good he is and in Series 5, right? I think if Goliath came out 5 months ago, he'd be a big bad too, like just the way that he acts and works with his unique ability as well. But yeah, there definitely needs to be an adjustment in general with the way... like, that is my number one wish list. We can do this definitely going either into the new year or going into like the week after the anniversary. Whatever we want to do is like our wish list for year 2 of Snap. That's definitely high up on the list, I would say, is to figure out series drops, big bads, the tokens, all that.
Yeah, it definitely has to get figured out because I think it's a major source of frustration for the community, as is the 62% win rate on high evo. So I think this is the situation where like, okay, this is the one big bad that truly feels big and bad right now. High evo running a 62% win rate on aggregate at a 10% meta share. This card is absolutely destroying the meta right now. Its meta share has actually come down quite a bit since its initial launch, but that comes to be expected. But its win rate has actually gradually increased. It's gotten more capable, the decks have become more refined, and so High Evo is the one that really stands out here. We're going to talk about all four, but High Evo is the one that really stands out right now as being the number one.
Yeah, I would say him, and then what? You would say Thanos for sure. I think Thanos is in an okay spot. The Soul Stone hurt him a ton. But Thanos' control is eking back in, I think. Yeah, because really it's because of the Time Stone, and like Mobius doesn't affect that, and then you can still like do some control aspect. I think Thanos is in an okay spot.
I think that's fascinating that you say that because I hate what they did to Thanos. I actually
Oh, I
really
hate it.
dislike what Thanos feels like right now.
Okay.
Like listen, I don't disagree. Its win rate is hovering around 55% right now at 5% of the meta, so it's very similar to Galactus. However, what I will say is that Thanos feels way worse now. It feels worse to play, and the thing that made Thanos special was that it felt great to play, and it had this consistent. I play a stone, I draw, except for the Power Stone. We knew that the Power Stone was different because it had to stay on the board for had an ongoing ability, etc., etc. The Soulstone change knocked like 3 to 4% off its win rate. It was a huge change. Not drawing that card made that whole archetype feel way worse. I actually kind of disagree. I don't think Thanos is in the right spot. I think that Thanos should be one of the best cards in Marvel Snap consistently. I think it should be one of the best archetypes in Marvel Snap. I think they took too much off it.
Well, I mean, look, dude, I full hand agree here. Like 100%. Do I want Thanos to get back to where he was? I think he's still good, is what I'm saying. I still think he's better than people are giving it. Like I think after the Soul Stone, it was such a shock, which it should be. And now it's mainly because these stones have been like Space Stone. I'm pretty sure Time Stone got adjusted, and then this one. Like we've had multiple stones get an adjustment of some sort, right? At some point now. So it's starting to rack up, right? And to take away the draw was so much to the way that we knew how to play Thanos. I agree. I think he should be one of the best decks in the game. Yeah, he's not where we want him, but getting the draw right back, like I hope they do that. Are they going to do that?
But the problem is, Cozy, and it's kind of like the inspiration for this discussion. Like obviously there's a big bad that's way behind all the rest, but Thanos does not compete with the other major archetypes. Like we have Elsa Bloodstone lists running 59, 60% win rate. High Evolutionary running 62% win rate. Like when you want to be Shuri running 60%, 59, 50, whatever. How do you justify Thanos, an archetype defining card, running 5 points under Shuri, right?
Yeah,
as an archetype as a whole. Like I think that's a hard sell for me as a big bad.
Yeah, that sucks, man. Like, I think Thanos being good is best for Snap. I think it's the most fun with Thanos decks. They're crazy. They're nuts. There's 10 archetypes that could be attached to him. They're super interesting. He had a lot of reigning as like a meta card, but there are a lot of ways to beat it. There's even more ways to beat it now with the lockdown and where everything's at the moment. It just, what it is like the Soul Stone that nerf came like as a shock. And so we were like, why did this happen? You know what I mean? Like, it didn't come when Thanos was like, he was very good with Thanos control. You know what I mean, though? He wasn't just like dominating. Hell, when Infinity Conquest first hit, the first week, nobody was playing, not a soul played Thanos. And then I made a video. I'm not saying I brought Thanos back, but I remember when I made this Thanos video, I told myself that I wanted him to be the first card that got me an Infinity Border because it was so on theme. So he wasn't too cracked. Like, he wasn't like I don't know. Yeah, that nerf still is so puzzling, bud.
If you think, well, though, Man-Thing just got released. Man-Thing should trade very effectively into a Thanos deck.
Right, and not only that, there's so many cards that are yet to be released. The meta where it's at now, I don't know. Truly, I don't know why we've stripped down the Infinity Gauntlet so low.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And that brings us to Kang, honestly. Kang, 54% win rate, but it's not a reliable win rate because the volume is so low on a 0.3% meta share. Kang feels completely awful 99.9% of the time. I pitched my buff last week Comment section loved it for what it's worth.
Yeah.
The just undo everything that happened in the game. Galactus, bring the locations back. Shang-Chi cards, bring them back too. That was a spicy meatball take, I'd say. But so Kang is the one that definitely feels weak. Anybody that bought Kang on launch because if it was a big bad has probably felt completely ripped off. And this one really is, I think, the most awful. What are your thoughts on Kang?
I honestly think with Kang, they like to do these buffs whenever like movies come out. He's gonna stay the same until like Secret Wars comes out, like the next Kang focused movie. Because then we're gonna have all these people that want to play Kang because like the hype's there, and it's like, oh, he sucks. Yeah, dude, Kang's so awkward, man, and I just don't see him ever having like a true meta ever the way that he is.
I think that like they actually went on record saying that they held back the Nick Fury buff until Secret Invasion came out. So I think there's actually precedent to what you're suggesting here. But I just don't think that big bads like should be like this bad. Like if that makes sense. Like, and on aggregate though, like what I'm trying to say is like except for high Evo, Galactus really is not in a great spot. Thanos is really not in a great spot. Kang is really not in a great spot. And the only reason why you would buy them for 6,000 tokens is the hope that, well, Galactus gives you like a card that is completely different than everything else and it has a really unique effect. Thanos will probably eventually be relevant again, but right now you probably don't want to be playing Thanos compared to some of the other decks. Kang is a complete waste of credits. It's high Evo. It's high Evo is the only one that feels like it's worth spending your tokens on. But like, man, like but also you don't want to pay for power. So it's like this very delicate balance. Like you don't want the big bats to be like, oh, you're paying your 6,000 tokens. Now you get to infinite. Good job. But at the same time, like, I personally don't like where Thanos is. I don't like where Galactus is. And I don't like where Kang is.
Yeah, hard to agree, bro. We're going to hope for that in year 2.
And guys, that's going to take us to the end of this week's Snapchat. Thank you so much for joining us this week. As always, Cozy, appreciate you. Thank you so much for all your insight that you provided today on the Snapchat. Always wonderful talking to you. And friends, thank you for your support for both Cozy and I's content. And until then, we'll see you on the next Marvel Snapchat episode.